The auctioneer's voice boomed through the cavernous barn as Mia stood in the center ring, her small hand gripping Dusty's lead rope. The once wild Mustang stood beside her, his coat dull but his eyes alert, watching her with something that hadn't been there before: trust. The crowd had fallen silent, witnessing something they couldn't quite name but could definitely feel. Going once for $1, the auctioneer called, his voice echoing against the rafters. Going twice. Mia's heart thundered in her chest. She could feel the weight of every stare, hear the whispers circulating through the crowd. The same people who had written Dusty off as dangerous, untrainable, worthless, they were watching now as the horse lowered his head to her shoulder, his breath warm against her neck. Sold. To the young lady in the center ring. The gavel fell with a crack that seemed to seal their fate together. Mia reached up and placed her palm against Dusty's cheek, feeling the rough hair beneath her fingers. He didn't flinch or pull away. Instead, he leaned into her touch, just slightly, enough to make tears spring to her eyes. Someone in the crowd sniffled. Then another. The hard-bitten ranchers and horse traders who had seen everything were wiping their eyes, watching a 12-year-old girl and a broken horse standing together like they'd always belonged that way. But to understand how we got here, we need to go back to the moment everything changed. 3 months earlier, the same auction barn had felt like a different world to Mia. She'd slipped in behind her uncle, trying to make herself invisible as she always did these days. Since her parents' divorce, she perfected the art of disappearing, at school, at home, everywhere. Being noticed only seemed to lead to disappointment. The smell of hay and manure filled her nostrils as they walked past stalls of horses waiting their turn at auction. Most looked healthy enough, some even pranced and nickered as potential buyers walked by. But then she saw him, tucked away in the last stall, head hanging low. "Who's that?" she asked her uncle, pointing to the dusty brown horse with scars crisscrossing his flanks. Uncle Jim shook his head. "That's the miller's wild Mustang. They tried breaking him for months, but he's too stubborn, too damaged. Heard he nearly killed their ranch hand last month." Mia couldn't look away from the horse's eyes, dark pools that reminded her of her own reflection lately. What'll happen to him? Probably the kill pin, her uncle said matter-of-factly. Nobody wants a horse like that. Too much trouble. Something twisted in Mia's chest. She knew what it felt like when people decided you were too much trouble. Later, as the auction progressed, Mia sat on the edge of her seat. When they finally led the Mustang into the ring, he pulled against the lead, nostrils flaring, eyes rolling white with fear. The auctioneer barely bothered with a proper introduction. Next up, Unbroken Mustang. 5-year-old gelding. Starting bid at $50. Silence fell across the room. $40? $30. Nothing. Folks, we've got to move this animal. $20. Mia felt her hand rising before she could stop herself. $10 from the young lady. Do I hear 15? No one moved. $5. Silence. The auctioneer sighed. $1. $1, Mia said, her voice sounding stronger than she felt. The gavel fell. Sold for $1. Uncle Jim stared at her in disbelief. "Mia, what have you done? Your father's going to kill me." Her father did, in fact, nearly explode when he found out. He'd been struggling enough since the divorce, and now this, a wild, dangerous horse his daughter had bought with her birthday money. "It's a waste of time and money," he'd shouted. "That horse is broken beyond repair." "He's not broken," Mia had whispered. "He's just scared." Her father had thrown up his hands. "You've got 3 months. If that animal isn't manageable by then, he's gone." "I mean it, Mia." The first week was the hardest. Dusty, she'd named him for his dull, dust-covered coat, wouldn't let her within 10 feet of his stall without pinning his ears back and charging the door. But Mia came anyway, every day after school. She'd sit on an overturned bucket just outside his stall and read her books aloud. "I don't know if horses like The Secret Garden," she told him on the 5th day, "but it's about things that seem dead coming back to life again." Dusty had snorted and turned his back to her. By the 2nd week, he'd stopped charging the door. Instead, he watched her from the corner of his stall, ears flicking toward the sound of her voice as she read. "You're wasting your time," said Mr. Peterson, the old ranch hand who managed the boarding stables. "That horse has the devil in him." But Mia kept coming. She started bringing carrots, leaving them just inside the stall door before retreating to her bucket. At first, Dusty wouldn't touch them until she left. Then one day, she watched him stretch his neck, nostrils flaring as he sniffed at her offering while she sat there. Progress came in the smallest moments. The day Dusty took a carrot from her outstretched palm, Mia thought her heart might burst. His lips were velvet soft against her hand, and she remained perfectly still, hardly daring to breathe. Good boy, she whispered, and for the first time, he didn't immediately retreat to the far corner of his stall. By the end of the first month, Mia could stand in Dusty's stall. He remained wary, but something was changing between them. She brought a soft brush one day and held it out for him to sniff. It's just to make you handsome, she told him. Not to hurt you. The first time she touched him, really touched him, not just a fleeting contact during feeding, she moved slowly, telegraphing every motion. Her hand came to rest on his shoulder, feeling the warmth of him through his dusty coat. He trembled but didn't pull away. Mia went home that night and cried, the first tears she'd allowed herself since the divorce. Something about Dusty's willingness to try, to trust despite his fear, broke something open inside her. Each day brought new challenges and tiny victories. Mia learned to read Dusty's body language, the twitch of his skin when he was anxious, the softening around his eyes when he relaxed. She talked to him constantly, sharing secrets she'd never told anyone. Mom says it's not my fault they split up, she told him while grooming his increasingly shiny coat. But sometimes I think if I'd been different, better somehow, maybe they would have stayed together. Dusty turned his great head toward her and blew softly through his nostrils, ruffling her hair. Mr. Peterson started watching their sessions from a distance. Never seen anything like it, he admitted to Mia's father one evening. That girl's got a way about her. Her father had merely grunted, unwilling to admit he was impressed. By the end of the second month, Mia could lead Dusty around the small paddock. He followed her willingly, his head low and relaxed. She'd introduced him to a saddle blanket, letting him sniff and investigate it before gently placing it on his back. The first time, he'd sidled away nervously. By the fifth try, he stood still, trusting her. Then came the day Mia's world shattered again. We're moving, her father announced over dinner. I got a job offer in Denver. Better pay, better opportunities. But what about Dusty? Mia asked, her voice small. Her father wouldn't meet her eyes. Honey, we can't take a half-wild horse to the city. You knew this was temporary. That night, Mia ran to the stables, tears streaming down her face. Dusty sensed her distress immediately, his own anxiety rising in response. When she tried to approach him, he backed away, snorting, the old fear returning to his eyes. Please, she begged. Please don't go back to being scared. I need you to be brave for both of us. But Dusty was too agitated. When she reached for him, he bolted past her, breaking free of the stall and galloping into the paddock area. It took 3 ranch hands to corner him and get him back to his stall, and by then, he was wild-eyed and trembling, all their progress seemingly erased in an instant. I told you, her father said when he came to pick her up. Some things can't be fixed, Mia. Some breaks are permanent. For 3 days, Mia couldn't bring herself to return to the stables. What was the point? They were leaving in 3 weeks. Dusty had reverted to his fearful state. Everything she'd worked for had crumbled. On the 4th day, Mr. Peterson showed up at their door. That horse hasn't eaten properly since you left, he told Mia. He's standing at the stall door, watching for you. Something stirred in Mia's chest, a tiny flame of determination. You remind me of my late wife, Mr. Peterson continued, surprising her. She could gentle any horse that came her way. Said the secret was believing in them more than they believed in themselves. That afternoon, Mia returned to the stables. Dusty was indeed standing at his stall door, ears pricked forward as she approached. He nickered softly, the first time she'd heard him make that sound. I'm sorry I left, she whispered, reaching out slowly. I was scared too. She didn't try to enter his stall that day. Instead, she sat on her bucket and read to him again, just like in the beginning. The next day, she brought carrots. The day after that, she stood beside him as he ate from his grain bucket. Slowly, patiently, they rebuilt their trust. 2 weeks before the move, Mr. Peterson approached her with an idea. The county fair has a Liberty horse demonstration next weekend. It's not a competition exactly, just a showcase. Liberty? Mia asked. Working with a horse without restraints, no halter, no lead rope. Just communication and trust. He looked at Dusty. Might be a way to show your dad what you've accomplished. The idea terrified and excited her. Do you think we could do it? Mr. Peterson nodded slowly. I've been watching you too. There's something special there. For the next week, Mia worked with Dusty in a new way. Instead of using a lead rope, she used her body language, soft words, and hand signals to ask him to follow, stop, turn. At first, he was confused, but gradually, he began to respond, moving with her like they were dance partners. The night before the fair, Mia's father found her sitting on the porch steps. Mr. Peterson tells me you've entered some kind of demonstration tomorrow, he said, sitting beside her. Mia nodded. I want to show you what Dusty and I can do together. Her father sighed. Mia, I know you've gotten attached, but we're still moving. Nothing's going to change that. Just come watch, she said. Please. The fairgrounds were crowded and noisy, exactly the kind of environment that would have sent Dusty into a panic months ago. Mia led him from the trailer, speaking softly into his ear. He was tense but trusting, his eyes fixed on her. In the warm-up area, she removed his halter. For a moment, he stood frozen, processing his freedom. Then he lowered his head to her level, blowing softly against her cheek. We can do this, she told him. When their turn came, Mia walked into the demonstration ring alone. The announcer's voice echoed over the speakers. Next up, a special Liberty demonstration by 12-year-old Mia Thompson and her Mustang, Dusty. This horse was considered untrainable just 3 months ago, purchased at auction for just $1. Mia stood in the center of the ring and whistled softly. From the entry gate, Dusty trotted in, head high, moving directly to her side. A murmur ran through the crowd. What followed was not technically perfect. There were moments of hesitation, times when Dusty's attention wavered. But there was also magic. A Mustang once deemed dangerous now trotting, turning, and stopping in perfect synchronization with a small girl's movements. No ropes, no restraints, just two souls communicating in a language they'd created together. For the finale, Mia stood still and signaled with the slightest hand gesture. Dusty circled around her, drawing closer with each loop until he stopped directly in front of her and lowered his head. Mia climbed onto his small mounting block and slipped onto his bare back, their first ride together, in front of hundreds of witnesses. The crowd erupted in applause. Through tear-blurred eyes, Mia found her father in the stands. He was standing, clapping, his face streaked with tears. Later, as they loaded Dusty into the trailer, her father cleared his throat. I made some calls, he said. There's a small stable about 20 minutes from our new place in Denver. It's not fancy, but they have a youth program that could use a horse like Dusty and an instructor like you. Mia froze. You mean? I mean some things that seem broken just need someone who won't give up on them. He squeezed her shoulder. Kind of like families after divorce. The following weekend brought us back to where our story began, the auction barn where it all started. Mia had insisted on returning, standing in the same ring where she'd first bid her $1, this time to share their story. As Dusty stood beside her, his coat gleaming in the overhead lights, the auctioneer invited her to speak. 3 months ago, everyone saw a broken horse, Mia said, her voice carrying across the now silent room. But I saw someone who was just scared and needed patience. We healed each other. She turned to Dusty, who lowered his head to her level, their foreheads touching in a moment of perfect understanding. Sometimes the things that seem most broken, she continued, just need someone to believe they can be whole again. Around the ring, hardened ranchers and horse traders wiped at their eyes. Parents pulled their children closer. And in that moment, a girl who once tried to make herself invisible stood in the center of it all, finally seen and finally whole, all because she'd been willing to spend $1 on something everyone else had given up on. As Mia and Dusty walked out of the auction ring together, whispers followed them, not of doubt this time, but of wonder. The Mustang sold for $1 had become priceless, and the girl who'd once felt broken had found her strength in healing another. Ready for our new adventure? Mia whispered to Dusty as they stepped into the sunlight. He nickered softly in response, and together they walked toward their future, two souls who had learned that sometimes the deepest wounds can lead to the most beautiful bonds, if only we have the courage to believe in second chances.